All right, we burn them out here. Ping away. Oh man, this was perfect right here. This is exactly what we wanted. I know. It's getting a little wild here, everybody. Ooh, okay. We did get our filter outs. That's great. That's great. So, filter outs. Bounce away all their stuff. Oh man, that saved us. Woo! Hello my fiery friends, the Infernoman here with the latest in budget deck technology. And for today's deck tech, we're going to be looking at a deck again in the historic format that utilizes the One Ring.
One ring to rule them all.
But also on top of that, we're going to look at one of the most busted and most powerful cards that actually has been put into Arena and also is making waves in other formats. This is Orcish Tempo. But as always, let's go ahead and let's go over the basic stats of the deck before we go into the in-depth part of the deck tech. So we're going to be looking at a 2.1 average mana curve here. We're looking at Dimir colors of blue and black. We are running 9 creatures in the deck with 24 instants, 3 artifacts, and 24 lands. Now, of course, as par for the course, we're going to be running this in the budget version. But of course, well, if you do stick around to the end of the video, I will definitely show you the upgraded, more powerful version that's going on right now in Ranked. But otherwise, what are we going to do to get to victory? Well, let's first talk about our 2 main all-stars in the deck from the Lord of the Rings sets. We're going to talk about first Orcish Bowmasters. Orcish Bowmasters is an Orc Archer 1/1 with Flash, and it says, when Orcish Bowmasters enters the battlefield and whenever an opponent draws a card except for the first one they draw in each of their draw steps, the Bowmaster will deal 1 damage to any target, then amass Orcs 1. So this card is actually very powerful against very specific decks out there. Against certain opponents that maybe say are running maybe creature heavy decks, it may not do that much, but it's still actually a very powerful card if left unchecked. And its counterpart that's going to help us get some more action and get some more power out of the deck, we're going to be utilizing the One Ring itself. The One Ring is a 4-mana legendary artifact with Indestructible. When the One Ring enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. You tap it and place a burden counter on the One Ring, then draw a card for each burden counter on the ring itself. So you've already seen, I'm sure many of you who have played Ranked already, this card in action, and it is very powerful when used correctly. There are obviously a lot of people out there that tend to use the One Ring incorrectly, I'm going to say. Not to say, of course, that we use it better than them, but I do have a better game plan to maximize the effectiveness of the One Ring. But first, let's go over again how the deck is going to get to victory. The idea basically, if you played a tempo deck, is we're just going to try to just keep mana up and open so that way we can counterspell our opponent, we can react to some of their creatures by destroying them, and then once we get to our win cons, we then throw them out and then get to victory. Our basic win con, you've seen this card used many times in other decks we played, Sheoldred the Apocalypse. We only need 1 copy in the deck because alone that's pretty much all we need to drain out our opponent. And if you tempo play your opponent enough, they'll mostly just kind of rage quit on the spot. But of course, before we get there, let's go ahead and show you exactly how we're going to do that. So in the 1-drop slot, we have Consider as our card draw spell with Surveil and Drawing. Our graveyard hit comes in the main deck in Cling to Dust, and also it can help us gain some life back whenever we use the One Ring to help ensure we have some stability as long as we're exiling a creature card. Otherwise, it's a draw spell, and we have tons of ways where we can get more fuel into the graveyard to escape and utilize it multiple times. Our removal comes in the form of Fatal Push and Heartless Act. They're really great for us. As far as our counter spells, we're going to use Make Disappear. The Casualty one actually is very helpful for the simple fact that we do have some Arc armies that we can usually sack the tokens if we need to in a pinch to maximize the effectiveness of the card. Our other counterspell in the deck, you find the Villain's Lair. The card basically either can be a counterspell for 3, or we can then draw 2 cards and discard 2 cards. And then as far as, of course, how we're going to then reutilize these cards, we have the infamous Snapcaster Mage. For those of you who are a little on the younger side and don't play the modern format, I'm going to explain to you again why this card is extremely powerful, even though it may not be used as much in the modern format, but it's extremely powerful here in Historic. Snapcaster Mage is a 2-mana human wizard with 2/1 and Flash. When the mage enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. So if this comes down in the mid to late game, you can then reutilize some of those extra spells, your Heartless Acts, you can reuse your Fatal Pushes, Cling to Dust. Basically, you get the idea here. We bring back something we can utilize. Most of the time it's going to be a counter spell to protect ourselves and keep our opponent off tempo as much as possible. As far as your land base is concerned, we are on a budget, so that's to be expected. We're only going to rock with what we have, which is just going to be simply 8 islands, 8 swamps down the middle, some Maestro's Theaters to help filter out our deck and also get those extra lands out, and some choked estuaries. What's really sweet about this is since it's no longer a rare in Arena, it's considered an uncommon, it's perfect for us and works really well with our budget. And then finally, the sideboard itself. Most of the time, this deck is actually really good as a best of 1, but if you do want to play in best of 3, use your Duresses as always against control decks. We have some copies of Change the Equation against enemy red or green decks out there. Alazo Top Plating can help protect our entire board and also does amass. It actually amasses in zombie army, but remember again, with the way amass works, you can then put +1/+1 counters on an army with control if we already have one. So it basically just means that we can put more counters on the Bowmaster, which is actually pretty sweet overall for us. March of the Black Gate also will help us amass if we keep attacking with our single little token. If your opponent doesn't really play much in terms of creatures, this card actually can get out of control very quickly if your opponent is not paying attention. Eyes Everywhere is honestly more of a jank option for me, so hear me out for a second here. What if we put out Eyes Everywhere and it allows us to scry, but if we do have enough mana up, we could exchange, say, our One Ring against one of our opponent's non-land permanents, and then we can then burn them out with the amount of burden counters they may have at the beginning of their upkeep. I know, it sounds hilariously jank, but again, I've tried it out once. It actually did work, and it was hilarious when it did. So just throwing that out there just as my own personal spicy way you could pull off a victory. You have Mystical Spute here as your other way of counterspelling against enemy blue decks out there. Some Suffocating Fumes, these are mostly for weak token decks out there. It's mostly also to counter a lot of the Convoke stuff that's running around out there in the format, and also it cycles, so you can also draw into something else if you don't need it. And then finally, an alternate win con, you can use Tolarian Terror. Since we do use a ton of instants and sorceries, and of course in the deck itself, Tolarian Terror comes in super cheap, and it's a decent 5/5 with its own built-in protection, which can also be a neat way of closing out the game. But that's otherwise the whole deck for you in a nutshell. I know obviously it's not as powerful as the version that's running around on Ranked right now in Historic, but even this version I still believe is actually very powerful if an opponent is not prepared for it. So without further ado, let's take the deck, of course, into the Historic format and show you how it performs. But before we continue, if you do like any of the content that I do, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you watch the content so you don't miss out on any of the gameplay, booster pack openings, deck decks, and so much more. Alright, my fire friends, here we go. We are playing our Orcish Tempo deck in the Historic format. And while we don't have any orcs in our hand right now, we do have at least the One Ring. We have a filter out so we can bounce the One Ring back when we need to, a Snapcaster Mage to bring back Fatal Push if we have to. This is perfectly fine, so let's keep it. What will our opponent play? They're playing Jagotha, so that probably means it might be some kind of aggro or burn deck. All right, with that, either way, Maestro's Theater. We need to start digging out some lands. So with that, we will get a swamp, gain life. Spire Bluff now, Symmetry Sage. All right, so we definitely going to need that out of the way, and we'll show off our island here. I forgot that we could probably, usually, Izz's Wizards doesn't usually have counter spells, so this is actually even better for us. Mentor's Guidance. So with that, I'll let them do their thing here real quick. And then we'll just Fatal Push it. They'll still get the cards, unfortunately. Actually, yeah, I should have just cast that right when this was cast. That's fine. That's fine, everybody. We'll make it work. Alright. They do their thing. The good news also is next turn we do have now the mana to Snapcaster Mage on the spot. So, I'm going to play some land. They shock themselves. Soul Scar Mage. I think we will probably Fatal Push this now. Just so we can get that off. And we pass here to our turn. Alright, so with that, Swamp. We'll play the One Ring. So this buys us a little bit of time. There's no way they can be aggro against us for this turn, so it gives us kind of like a free pass here for a bit. And what's nice also is burn spells that they have will not hurt us for a turn. Symmetry Sage. Dreadhorde Arcanist. Will they tap out? We'll see. Okay, wow, they do. Alright. I mean, that's fine. That's actually okay with us because you'll see right now, we have protection from everything, so opponent, this doesn't really do anything against us. So they swing. So basically, I guess they were just trying to do that just to get the Mentor's Guide off, which is, I guess that's okay. Either way, we don't take damage, and that's mostly what we're concerned about. So they're gonna dig through their deck. Our opponent is also playing, I realize, the old school version. Is that actually, should I say old school? I don't know if that's actually old school. It's basically the older version of this deck. You get the idea. So no damage here. We will put a burden counter, draw a card. Ooh, okay, we got our Orcish Bowmaster. Okay, that's great. And we also have another copy of the One Ring, so even better for us. So with that, we will get an island. So we need to wait a turn here. We need to figure out what our opponent's doing. If they draw cards, Orcish Bowmaster will be our go-to. If they swing, Snapcaster Mage, Fatal Push them. It all depends on what they're going to do here. Play with fire. That's okay. Take a little damage here. Play with fire again. Go down 17. Wizard's Light. Wow, okay. Well, here comes all the burn. So that's fine. We're going to take a lot of damage here. But we can still Snapcaster right here, which is great. Wait, do we do it here? Okay, no, that's fine. We'll draw some cards. Oh, wow. They only got lands. Well, how do we do this now? Okay, I think we just Snapcaster now. We get a Fatal Push back. We Fatal Push the Dreadhorde Arcanist. Take it out. Unfortunately, the trigger does still go off. I was dumb on that one, guys. Sorry. So we still take a ton of damage here, but that's okay. We're still not out of it yet. We will take some damage here with the One Ring. Get a Consider. So with that, Island. What I'm going to do right now seems a little awkward, but we're going to try this here. We're going to get our second copy of the One Ring. Keep the new one. And then with that, Consider. Throw away the island. Draw a card. Oh, wow. Okay, we're not drawing anything. That's fine. We swing at our opponent here. Down to 14. Pass. Really could use right now another option here just to get through our opponents. Let's see if we can find it. Dreadhorde Arcanist number 2. Oh dear. Oh boy. Whoa, we're looking a little rough right now. That's okay. It's not impossible, everybody. Turn on the One Ring. Draw a card. I'm gonna make this here. Not exactly what we want right now. We need right now some removal, or at least that Shield Rid. Island, throw it away. Draw a card. You find the Villain's Lair. Not quite. Alright. Well, we have our second Orcish Bowmaster, which is nice. Come on, opponent. Draw a card. Draw a card. Any cards right now against us would be perfect. Ooh, okay. This is it right here, everybody. So here's how we do this. Let this resolve. We will Orcish Bowmaster. Orcish Bowmaster. We ping. Second Orcish Bowmaster going down. And we still have mana available for counterspells if we need to. Okay, here we go. Okay, so with that, let's see. We will make Disappear on the Wizard's Lightning. So we counterspell that. We then attack the other Arcanist. Okay, here we go. They draw 2. We lose our Snapcaster, which is fine. Wow, look at all that. Okay, this is exactly what we wanted. Alright, we burn them out here. Ping away. Oh man, this was perfect right here. This is exactly what we wanted. Consider. Wow. They're really going to do that? Okay. That's fine, opponents. Oh my god, we got there. We got there. Yes, we got there. We didn't get the pings off, of course, but you saw right there. That was awesome. That's exactly what we wanted the deck to do. All right, my fire friends, here we go. We're playing our Orcish Tempo deck here in Historic, and all right, well, we do have now the One Ring and the Orcish Bowmaster, and we have plenty of lands to cast everything. So we're going to keep this, and hopefully we'll draw in some more of our removal and counter spells versus our opponent here. Salfrim Void? Oh, this might be a colorless deck. Okay, well, let's see. What is our opponent trying to play here? We'll show off a Swamp, and we pass. I guess we'll see. All right, Crystal Grotto. They're scrying. Filtering their draws. Guardian Idol. Tapped. Okay. We have a Fatal Push, but I don't really think that's going to help us too much in this matchup. So we'll still choke Estuary, showing off the Swamp. And we pass here. Okay, everybody. So the game plan now is Orcish Bowmaster. And then we're just going to hopefully just start doing some more damage against our opponent here. If they attempt to draw cards, this will be even better. But I don't really know if their deck is going to have that much in terms of card draw. Mind Stone. Cold Steel Heart. On blue. Okay. Well, now's the time. Orcish Bowmaster. Pinging them. Make an army. We have a Heartless Act, which is nice. Swamp. Go swinging here. Down to 17. We at least have a counterspell, which is nice for us, so we do have an option against our opponent. Radiant Fountain. Slows down our beatdown plan, but that's okay. Mystic Forge. Ooh, okay. I think we're going to have to counterspell this one for sure. Does our opponent have an answer? They do not. Whew. Maze Mind Tome. They could scry with it, but drawing cards will just make us more stronger. Island. We will swing here. Do some damage. Down to 17. And we pass. Just get down that one more land. We should be in a good spot. Maze Mind's Tome. Scrying. They turn on their Guardian Idol. Actually, we can then utilize our removal here, which would be nice. It all depends on what our opponent's trying to do for the combo here. Cold Steel Heart again. On blue. So blue artifacts? Interesting. Okay, let us... We're just going to have to let this kind of go.
I will defend my allies.
What will our opponent dig out against us? That's the question.
I will not lose a fray.
Aetherflux Reservoir, okay. Well, we have to shut that off ASAP. So with that, only have you find the Villain Slayer, so that's okay. Here's how we're going to do this, everybody. Ooh, we got to make disappear. That's even better for us. So, we're going to swing and weaken Karn so they can't dig for anything else. It's down to 1. Put down a Swamp, and we pass here. We can't use the One Ring if Karn is out, but that's okay. We're still going to find a way through this. Aetherflux Reservoir. Okay, so this is it, everybody. So here's how we do this. Snapcaster Mage. We then get back the You Find the Villain Slayer. We then counterspell You Find the Villain Slayer. Alright. Woo! Well, that's clear for now. That's okay. We're through this currently. Mystic Forge. Yikes. Well, we're still going to try to find a way to fight our way through the Karn and all these artifacts. Well, if we have our filtered out, we'd be in perfect shape right now. Where's our filtered out? We just need that. Okay, they turn on one of their cards, which is okay with us. We can actually just blow that up. So with that, we will Fatal Push away the Cold Steel Heart. One less thing for us to worry about. Island. Snapcaster to Karn. Our Orcs to face. So that does slow our opponent down a lot, which is great for us. And we will pass the turn here. We're going to keep up the mana for Make Disappear just in case. Opponent is tapping for some mana. What did our opponent find? Ooh, Paradox Engine. We can't afford that to go online. Okay, so... Wait, do they have the mana? Okay, they do. So we're going to have to casualty here. Sacrificing our Orc. We counterspell that. Taking out Paradox Engine. They pay for it, but it still gets counterspelled, so that's perfectly fine. We've been dodging a lot of scary stuff here, everybody, but we're making it through. On exiling cards. Okay, so let us play now the One Ring. Protection from everything for a bit. Draw a card. Play the island. Consider. We need to dig for more answers. Okay, well that'll be good for next turn, as long as our opponent doesn't have anything else that's crazy. We swing here. They're down to 11. Alright, well we're definitely going to be on the beatdown plan now. We just need to untap and just keep a counterspell up, and we should be okay. What will our opponent do? They scry. Obviously, if they try to draw any cards, we just start pinging away, which is probably what they don't want to do. So this does slow their game plan down a ton. Mystic Forge also will still cost them money. Right? Wait, did I say money? I meant to say life. I could not say words right now.
Guardian Idol again. That's fine. Still comes in tap, so they can't use it yet. Okay, so we're going to go full control for a second here. And we're going to tap the One Ring. Because I want to try to draw some more cards, and we need action. 2 cards here. And we'll take the damage, of course, but we have plenty of time. And what's nice is we did get our You Find the Villains there. So we have now plenty of ways of counterspelling our opponent. We'll sacrifice our Maestro's Theater as it enters. And we will get... What do we get? I think we get probably another blue source here. So we get an island. Gain some life. Go swinging here. We're down to 8. We're almost there. Can we beat the Artifacts deck? Cloud Key. Ooh, okay. I don't know if I want this to go off, but I think we need to save our counterspells for the bigger stuff. Cloud Key again. Okay. Well, their artifacts are going to be cheaper now. But it's okay. We're still going to find a way through this, everybody. I believe in us. Ooh, they got the One Ring. Okay. So this is what we counterspell. So that's out of the way. Consider. Throw away the swamp. We don't need that. Make Disappear's not too shabby. We'll keep that. We ping ourselves. We got another copy of the One Ring, which is nice. We're going to dig for some more answers here. Maestro's Theater is okay, but it keeps our life total high enough where we can just keep doing our thing. But we really, really need at least another beatdown creature here. Okay, this time we will get a swamp. We swing here. Down to 5. We're just going to let ourselves go. We have enough now, at least with counterspells, where we can just kind of keep ourselves alive. Our opponent is going to go off, which is a little scary here, but I still believe we can pull this through. They gain life back. Annoying, but it's okay. This is fine. Floating mana. Floating more mana. Paradox Engine again. Alright. Again, we cannot allow that to go onto the field, so we're just going to counterspell that. Alright, that's off. Let our opponent keep going here. Wow, okay. They ping themselves for 8. Either Flux or Reservoir. Okay, so let's do it this way. Cling to Dust. What do we pull away? I think we're going to pull away a Karn. Alright, so we will casualty counterspell this. And what do we sacrifice here? I think we're going to have to sacrifice the Snapcaster Mage. It will do more damage, but in case if they start drawing cards, we have the Bowmaster at least to still keep us alive. Do you pay, opponents? Can they pay for it? Okay. Whew! That was too close, everybody. Cold Steel Heart. Tapping for blue. Paradox Engine again. Oh, but we are out of action now. We will draw some more. I know. It's getting a little wild here, everybody. Ooh, okay. We did get our filter outs. That's great. That's great.
This is where the fun begins.
So, filter out. Bounce away all their stuff. Oh, man, that saved us. Woo! All right. That was what we needed, everybody. So with that, we swing down to 7. Oh, wow. I'm so glad we got that right now. Wow. Okay. So we throw away a copy of the One Ring. We already have another one, so that's not a big deal for us. How will our opponent actually now beat us? This is actually sweet. Oh, man. That was beautiful. That's exactly why I wanted this card. This card is so underrated. How's nobody playing this right now? Mind Stone. Okay, so I think, well, that's fine. We'll just let that go. I'm just going to try to rebuild here as much as I can. We will counterspell that. All right, there we go, everybody. We got there. We beat the Artifacts deck. Oh, man. Filter Out is such a good card. And there you have it, everybody. So that was our Orcish Tempo deck for you in a nutshell. And you tell me in the comments below, what do you think? What do you think about this deck now that you saw it in action? Personally, for me, I was actually really impressed with the deck. It's actually pretty good, even on a budget here. And yes, there were some moments where we were a little awkward since we're not as consistent as we want to be with the deck, but the deck still performed very well with what we had. And as you saw, we have a couple of matchups where, again, cards like Filter Out was actually really good for us, bouncing the One Ring. The Orcish Bowmaster did pull off what we needed to do. I was honestly really impressed with how the deck turned out, and I'm actually pretty satisfied with it. But of course, as always, if you're looking at this deck and you're thinking to yourself, how can I make this better? Is it possible to make this even more powerful? Well, the good news about that is there is definitely an upgrade path for this deck that makes it extremely powerful if you want to go all out. Now, if you're looking to upgrade the deck, here's what I'm going to recommend for you based upon some of the lists and also my personal experience playing the deck. So for the upgrades, we're going to be trimming out a couple of the Heartless Axe. We'll be adding in Sheoldred's Edict. And the reason for this is we'll then add in another copy of Sheoldred the Apocalypse to give us a little bit more consistency with our win cons. We're going to take out the You Find the Villain's Lair and add in Archmage's Charms. This is going to be a lot more flexible for us and it's got a lot more power to it. We will take out the Filter Outs and we will move them actually to the sideboard, so then you can add in Brazen Borrower. So this way you can bounce out your opponent's non-land permanents, and also it gives you another flash flyer that can hopefully give us a little bit more power to close out the game a little bit more easier. Of course, no surprise here, you definitely of course are going to upgrade that mana base, so get in every kind of dual land that you can get. Obviously the Water Graves, you can get Underground Rivers, the Pain land, that's fine too. The Pathway lands themselves are perfectly fine as well. Trim out, of course, the swamps and islands that you do have, and you'll make in room for the utility lands such as the Hive of the Eye Tyrants, Castle Lockwinds, Bajuka Bog, Otawara Soaring City, Hollow of the Storm Giants, and Castle Vantris to give you much more flexibility when you are trying to grind out games against certain opponents. Your sideboard will have some small changes here, but it's mostly going to still be consistent with what we're trying to do. So the Duresses, of course, go away. Instead, you're going to have your Thoughtseize. I mentioned they'll have an extra copy of Sheoldred's Edict here. For additional things, you'll have Unmoored Ego as a way to kind of pluck out things that are going to be a troublesome card to deal with in the deck in best of 3 matches. Mystical Disputes are going to be kept in. As I mentioned, the Filter Outs go to the sideboard. Change the Equation as your other more specific card hate against card colors. And then finally, your Ritual Soots and Witch's Vengeance will round out the package to give you much more consistency against go wide decks, to give you some decent wraths that also won't blow up your Sheoldreds. But with that, these are my final thoughts I'm going to give you. I'm personally not a fan of tempo style decks. Most of the time, I tend to play much more of a fair magic and tribal style player, if you've seen many of my videos. But of course, for those of you out there who are a fan of tempo decks out there, if you're a fan of playing a little bit on the dirty side of Dimir, well, actually, now that I think about it, that's kind of how Dimir is in a nutshell. But otherwise, if you're the person that likes to react to your opponent's plays, if you're a person that likes to kind of just have a little bit more control of the game state, be sure to give this deck a try. I could tell you right now, even though it may not be my style of deck, it definitely was pretty fun to play. It was definitely satisfying to kind of outwit your opponent on certain things. And for those of you out there who just can't get enough of this style, whoever likes Orcish Bowmaster out there, if you're a fan of the One Ring, it's definitely a much more powerful card than I could have anticipated. But I had a lot of fun once again, and I assure you, when you get your wins with those Bowmasters, you build up your Orc army, you will definitely not be disappointed. That's all I have for you today. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and just remember that no matter what you do play in the game of life, always be sure to burn bright. Later!